Thanks for taking the time to download the Inside the Jungle podcast. To send along your feedback about this show, send your emails to insidethejungle@spnt.tv.
Well, the NFL football season is officially over, but that doesn't mean we stop here on Inside the Jungle. This week we'll continue our position group series, focusing on the defensive line. We'll also look back at Sunday's huge Super Bowl ending and the craziness that ensued. We'll look ahead again to 2015. It's all coming up on the Wednesday Night Roundtable here on Inside the Jungle.
This is the Wednesday Night Roundtable with Nick Superling, Mickey Metzer, Anthony Cosenza, and Scott Bantel.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are around this beautiful world. This is the Wednesday Night Roundtable, part of the Inside the Jungle podcast here at CincyJungle.com. What a Super Bowl. It's been nice to see a Bengals team in there for once, but we got a very good game, which is all you could ask for. When you consider that a year ago the Super Bowl was so lopsided and over after the first quarter. Glad you could join us here on Inside the Jungle. I'm Nick Superling, hanging out with my two amigos this week, Anthony Cosenza and Scott Bantel. I'll start with you, Scott. How's the weather for you down in Cincinnati? I'm snowed in up here in Northwest Ohio.
Cold, but I think we got a bit better than you guys. We're probably low 40s, upper 30s wind. Supposed to get some snow tonight, but not like the 12 to 15 inches you got.
Yeah, we lucked out. We missed it pretty much all winter, and then we got it all in one weekend. And so, yeah, it's been fun here in Northwest Ohio. Speaking of snow, you don't get any snow down in SoCal, Anthony Cosenza. How you doing, man?
Well, Nick, no, we don't get snow, and it was actually a pretty nice day outside. I got a little short story that was pretty entertaining I got to share with you. I try and run my dog every day. He's very hyper, as you probably know. You've heard him in the background a couple times. But I go on a run with him, and have you ever played the old school game Paperboy?
Yeah.
You're on the bike, yeah. And you know how all those obstacles kind of come out at you? That was kind of my jog this evening. It was a lot of things kind of random flying out of me, stray dogs coming out, and different people walking around. So it was kind of an adventure. But I'm doing well otherwise. I appreciate you asking.
That was an awesome game to play on your Nintendo. I remember in the arcade they had like the bike handlebars as the joystick, and yeah, that was cool. That's some old school game. We could talk about that for an entire episode.
Yeah, but the thing was, though, is I wasn't actually throwing papers through windows or anything. I was just running by, minding my own business, and all this stuff was going on. But I don't know, kind of funny, I guess.
Did you see the crazy guy like breakdancing on his front lawn?
No, I didn't.
Bummer. Well, we're glad you could join us this week here on the program. As I mentioned before, we'll continue our position group series this week. We'll talk about the defensive line. We kind of talked about it a little bit last week with the linebackers. It was up for debate as to which position group had it worse in 2014. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But I want to get to the Super Bowl and get your thoughts on what occurred, the ending that was. Do you run? Do you pass? I know, AC, you're a big fan of Pete Carroll. You and I both picked the Seahawks to win a week ago. I thought they actually outplayed the Patriots on Sunday night and probably should have won, but one play, and let's be fair, it wasn't just the one play, but it came down to one play that the Patriots made and the Seahawks didn't. Your take on the Super Bowl and New England winning?
Yeah, I don't know if I truly feel that the Seahawks outplayed the Patriots. I think just in true Seattle fashion, they were opportunistic at just huge moments in the game. You know, that miraculous catch that I think it was Kearse that came down with that to kind of set up that goal line play. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. You know, Pete Carroll's catching a lot of flack. You know, obviously you want to turn and hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch there and hope that he can kind of push his way in. Chances are he would, but you know, at the same time, that's probably what the Patriots defense was kind of planning for, maybe a little bit, even though they did make the right play on the pass there. So you're limited in timeouts, limited with time left. So if Marshawn Lynch is stopped, you know, you got to kind of either call the timeout or regroup quickly and spike or do something. So I think the play I would have called, I think I would have done a play action fake to Marshawn Lynch and booted out with Russell Wilson and let him kind of try and hit the sideline. And if he didn't get it in, then maybe he can run it out of bounds and stop the clock. So That's kind of what I would have done. But great game. It was really fun, and Katy Perry's fun to watch on mute.
Well, okay. Yeah, I was going to say I agree with you about Katy Perry. Big fan. I agree, too, about the play-action pass and the play call to throw a slant there. I mean, let's give Butler some credit. I mean, he made a great play on that ball. But I would, if it was me calling the play, I would have rolled Russell Wilson out. He's your best player on offense. Well, aside from Marshawn Lynch. Maybe even if you do read option, do something to get Russell Wilson out in space. We saw it all game. The Patriots were unable to defend Russell Wilson running the football. So that's why I'm so shocked that they went the route that they did. And Mark in the chat room says, why pass and not a back corner fade? That's another good option too. I think too that we saw it at the end of the first half. Even a back shoulder fade at the front pylon to Chris Matthews would have been a much better option than throwing a quick slant in traffic right where there's just so much congestion. Obviously, we're second guessing. Obviously, if they score a touchdown, we're hailing Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll as the greatest team ever. But they didn't make the play, and you got to give the Patriots some credit as well. The reason I thought that they outplayed the Patriots is the fact that they were able to force more turnovers, and they had no answer for Russell Wilson. That's why I thought that they outplayed New England. Scotty B, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game, especially after last year's Super Bowl where the game was over after about 5 minutes. It was nice to see a game come down like that. I'm glad I'm not a Seahawks fan. I guess the only consolation to Seahawks fan is that you just won it the year prior, so it's not as painful. But could you imagine, especially Bengals fans, having never won the Super Bowl and losing it on a play like that? Boy, I was feeling torn up the day after, and I don't even like the Seahawks. It's just I can't imagine what that must have felt like as a fan or as a player to lose the way that they lost that game. That's got to be tough.
I look at it too as the karma gods coming back to bite them. They really lucked out getting into that game in the first place, and they just had the lucky catch from Curse, and it was like their luck just literally ran out at the exact wrong time.
Yeah, the Packers probably got to be feeling the worst about the situation. They're probably sitting there, man. We should be in the Super Bowl running away with this one the way that game was going. So, just another stick in the Packers' crawl, I'm sure, watching that game.
I think too a lot goes overlooked, and there's a lot of focus on the last play, and I think there was another significant part of that game where I think they missed some really good opportunities to capitalize on. At the end of the first half, obviously we saw them score the touchdown with 6 seconds left, which was a pretty bold move to say the least. Then in the second half, they get the opening kickoff and they go down to the field and they get in the red zone, but they can't get it in the end zone and they settle for 3 there. I think that was a big part of the game as well. They score 7 there. It's a completely different ball game. And there was another play, I think, too. Curse had the ball. It was kind of a deep ball. Curse had it in his hands and he dropped it, and because of it, they ended up having to punt. So there are some other plays that get overlooked as well, AC, in that game. And a lot of focus, obviously, I mean, for good reason, goes on that last play and that last drive. But yeah, I just think that there were some opportunities that the Seahawks left on the field.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it is with every game. You kind of focus. There's in a loss, usually you focus on 1 or 2 big plays, and you sit there and say, well, that's knee-jerk reaction. That's the reason why we lost, and that's the reason that game, for instance, if you want to relate it to the Bengals, the Mike Nugent missed kick against the Panthers.
Oh.
That's the biggie. But all day long, they couldn't stop Cam Newton, who had a career day, and there's all kinds of different things that happened throughout that day as well. So
yeah, they couldn't stop Gronk. I mean,
right.
It was a mismatch all over the place with him.
Right. So I mean, there's a lot of different things. Tom Brady had a big day, but you look at that one big play at the key moment of the game as it's winding down to the end there, and obviously that's what's going to get the spotlight shown on it. So.
Well, it was a crazy ending to a crazy week. Marshawn Lynch not talking with all that shenanigans stuff going on. Deflategate, who knows what's going to happen with that. The good news is we got a good game, and it was the last good game we've had, and it feels like in quite some time. I would have loved to see Marshawn Lynch power through and maybe give him the rock there at the end, but at the same time, you're in the last minute. You've only got one timeout left, and it's second down. So, yeah, it's rough. I feel for Seahawks fans. I really do. But at the same time, I'm even more angry that New England won. That's just my take because I can't stand Tom Brady. That's just me. Love to get your thoughts of Bengals fans inside the jungle at spnt.tv. One other thing I want to touch on before we get into our position group series, guys. And I know this is a Bengals podcast, but it's worth mentioning because they're in the same division as us. But how about the week the Browns have had? Woo, boy. Would you rather be a Browns fan or a Seahawks fan right about now? Yikes. Scott, fill us in. What the hell is all going on in Cleveland?
Oh, man. I tell you, I hate to sound so happy about someone else's misery, but watching that happen to the Browns, boy, I mean, I'm not taking any humor in the Johnny Manziel situation. I think it's a sad situation, but unfortunately, I can't say that it's not a surprise. I mean, I think anyone that followed the guy throughout college saw a guy that, partied like most of us did in college, but didn't seem to get the any idea of the repercussions. And when you have that type of attitude, and then you get given, $1 million or a couple $100,000, it's not going to help the situation. And you see the same thing with Josh Gordon. Both stories are sad. You hope they get the help they need. But as a team in the division, you look at it and say, well, we should at least have third place wrapped up next year. So.
Well, we'll see.
So there is a little bit good, and now you got the situation with the texting on the sidelines. I saw some things today. Their punishment could be anything from a fine to losing draft picks, which, quite frankly, if you're a Browns fan, taking away draft picks might be a good thing because they don't seem to do very well with them. So, but it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. Just like we will be interested to see what happens with the Patriots and the whole football saga.
Yeah, the Browns, they have 2 first-round draft picks this year, AC, and a lot of people are thinking that they might be leaning again towards a quarterback, believe it or not. But because you have a free agent in Brian Hoyer who might not be back, and if I'm Brian Hoyer, I don't know if I want to go back. And at the same time, you can't count on Johnny Manziel being available and ready to be your quarterback this fall. So, man, I kind of do feel bad for Browns fans because they're in a world of hurt.
Cleveland's gonna Cleveland. Yeah. I mean, that Mickey would have a field day with this one if he was here tonight. On one hand, I mean, like you guys said, you feel bad for those guys. They're kind of dealing with their own personal demons, and it's easy to sit here and go, oh, what an idiot, or and there is an element of that with those guys. I mean, you got to know that you're in a different type of job, a much bigger spotlight, and as in Manziel's case, I mean, he's a major position of leadership on that team and throughout the league, and you can't act that way. And kudos to him to hopefully get his life right, and hopefully that's not something that's just for saving face with his franchise and all of that. I hope he gets himself clean, but it's that team just can't seem to really get themselves together since they've re-entered the league, and it's good for the rest of the division, but it is kind of a shame that they haven't been able to make hay since they've been back.
Josh Gordon, it sounds like he's going to be out for the year with another suspension due to failing another drug test. A guy that had so much talent. We saw him lead the league in receiving a couple years ago, despite missing the first 2 games of the season. There was a lot of promise with this guy coming out of college. Just again, can't stay out of his own way. And I'll tie this back into the Bengals. And you look at the fact that here under Marvin Lewis, they've had stability at quarterback. You cannot deny that, and I think that's a part of the reason why, and it's a major reason why they've had success, Anthony.
Right. We talked about that, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, I think, where, Marvin Lewis had some comments about the Senior Bowl or at the Senior Bowl, and, I think he said something to the effect of, we can't really waste time with another quarterback right now. We've got a guy who's getting us to the playoffs. We gotta prop him up. We've got to surround him with a lot of talent. And I think that's the game plan this year. I don't think A.J. McCarron's going to make a run at the starting position. I don't think they're going to draft a guy high. And this year's crop in the draft is actually pretty poor outside of the first couple of guys that will go at that position. But I think the game plan is for 2015 that this is the do or die year for Andy Dalton, and they're going to give him as many pieces as possible on both sides of the ball. And if he kind of stumbles again, either in the playoffs or maybe doesn't make it to the playoffs, I think then they look at another quarterback and they say, let's see if this other quarterback that we might bring in in 2016 with all of these weapons we've surrounded Dalton with can maybe do a little more. But like it or not, Dalton's going to be the guy in 2015.
And I think he should. He continues to win football games. You look at the year he had in 2014, and we'll dig deeper too when we get on that side of the ball as part of our position group series. But the guy had no weapons this year on offense outside of Jeremy Hill. I mean, AJ Green, yeah, he had 1,000 yards, but it was a quiet 1,000. He missed a lot of games. And there was some games where he was just, he was non-existent. When you lose Tyler Eifert in the first game of the year and you lose Marvin Jones and, he doesn't see the field at all in 2014, those are some big-time weapons. We saw Mohamed Sanu drop off the face of the earth. So, yeah, I think, and one of you guys, I believe it was you, Anthony, you wanted to talk about some of the top priorities this offseason as far as the Bengals go. Maybe we should touch on that a little bit. We talked about last week the linebackers, and they need a lot of help. But as far as a priority standpoint goes, what position group do you think is the biggest priority for the Bengals this offseason?
Well, it's kind of a different. There's different ways to take that question. There's what position group would you improve in terms of priorities? And there's a series on Cincy Jungle I've done top 5, Bengals offseason priorities, and some of those are specific positions, but some of them are also kind of approach by the team, front office moves, that sort of thing. To me, if you're saying actual position, I think you always can do well by adding pass rushers, and I think that'll segue nicely also into what we'll be talking tonight. But I think the offensive line is pretty solid, even if you add maybe a tackle or something to groom behind Whitworth and Smith. But I think adding pass rushers and linebacker help is going to be big in terms of positionally. The way I took it, and it's spoiler, it's probably going to go up tomorrow. My overall number one priority is I want to see this team breed competition and toughness back into it. That's just something that I think was lacking last year, and I don't want positions to feel safe if I'm the coach or front office on this team. I want people to work for it. There's a couple of things that I noticed. No Oklahoma drill last year, a lot of veteran rest days for guys, and if Marvin Lewis is going to be the coach again this year, maybe to make an impact on this team that has a lot of veterans on it, maybe shake it up. Have a different approach to the off-season workouts. Don't be so easygoing on these guys and worried about injuries, because a lot of guys were injured this year anyway. So that's kind of how I look at it.
How about you, Scott? Is there a top priority for you this offseason?
Yeah, I would think you gotta improve along the defensive line. We saw that with Geno Atkins not being the Geno Atkins that we remember. You saw just how pedestrian some of those players are. I think you've got to shed some of that dead weight on the roster that, outside of Atkins and Dunlap, you're really not getting much production from any of the other guys along the line. And I know we're going to talk about that later tonight, but you've got to have someone other than Atkins or Dunlap that can produce along that line. It makes the linebackers better. It makes the secondary better. So I would say defensive line is the area that they have to improve the most.
I'm torn because I look at this team and I look offensively at what they had this year, and I know, he gets a lot of flack, but Jermaine Gresham, he was a go-to guy when they needed him. Again, AJ Green didn't stay healthy this year, and I mentioned Eifert and Marvin Jones. To me, I think the biggest thing that they need to improve this offseason is offensively. They need to get some weapons down the field to stretch the field, because once they realized that the Bengals were a run heavy offense, they didn't start off that way until they decided to give Jeremy Hill the rock. But once they decided to be run heavy, you saw 9 guys in the box, because you knew that there was nobody on this team that could stretch the field and get behind this defense. So for me, I'd like to see them get some more speed on the outside positions at receiver. You can't look. I like Marvin Jones, but you can't count on the guy. The guy's always hurt. Mohamed Sanu, I mean, he's a special player in the sense that he can do a lot of different things, but he's not a world beater. He's not going to get behind defenses. So for me, I got to see them stretch the field, which opens things up for AJ Green. It opens things up for the running game. And, guess what? It opens things up for Tyler Eifert as well.
Absolutely. And one of the posts that I put up in that top 5 was to something kind of to that effect. It was mostly focusing on the slot. And I didn't catch exactly which one of you brought it up, Scott or Nick, about the tight ends, but that's a great priority that needs to be addressed as well. And I think the slot can be used in a number of different ways. You could put Eifert there and split, kind of have an inline tight end as well. You can have kind of the shorter, shiftier guy go and run routes and move the chains. But I do think, Nick, you're right. I think there is an element now. The teams were so obsessed with the 6'4", 215-pound guy that can high point catch everything, but there is increasing value to guys that can really stretch the field, the Randall Cobbs, even Andrew Hawkins, guys like that can do work in the slot and do some creative things, and I'd like to see the Bengals pick up a player like that this year.
Especially, too, if they let Gresham go in free agency, they're going to need to get that inline blocker, because we know Eifert, that's not really his forte, Scott.
Sorry, Nick. I was in the chat room.
He's too busy typing to all the people watching.
I told
I like it.
Brett I'd mess up eventually here, so I just wanted to make sure that he saw me mess up.
Your thoughts on the tight end spot? Because I know you're a big Gresham fan.
Oh yeah. I'm actually writing a post for Cincy Jungle right now, kind of reviewing the tight ends and taking a look at what they should do in the offseason, free agent wise, draft wise, and I think you gotta expect Gresham's not going to be back. I don't know if he wants to be back. From what you read about the coaching staff, I'm not sure the coaching staff wants him back either. So I think they let him go. I think that's probably the best for both parties. Eifert, we hear good things about him, but you got to stay on the field, and if he can't stay on the field, he's of no help. So, I think they do have to address the tight end position. I personally think they should address it both in the draft and in free agency. Probably later in the draft, but they definitely need a blocking tight end, because as much as we like to poke fun at Gresham for his false starts, his holdings, etc., he was a pretty good blocking tight end. And that's not what Eifert does. So they are going to have to be able to find a tight end that can block. They can still run 2 tight end sets, then have 1 tight end block, have Eifert running routes. So I think the tight end spot's going to be a big focus in the offseason, both, like I said, in the draft and in free agency.
Maybe they can convert Matt O'Donnell to tight end, the 6'10" tackle from the Canadian League. He's coming back. I know you guys saw that this week.
Maybe they need to bring the old tackle-eligible Dennis Rowland back.
We love Dennis Rowland here on the program, that's for sure. Look, there are some different priorities. Both of you guys think the defensive side of the football was a priority, and I agree. They need to address that as well. But at the same time, man, look, for all his faults, Dalton, at the same time, he needs help. And so the best way to do that is to get some speed and allow him to stretch the field and open things up for him. Not just him, but for Jeremy Hill and the tight ends as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, Bengals fans. What would be your biggest priority this offseason as far as the Bengals go? All right, let's talk about our defensive line here in 2014 as we continue on with our position group series. Last week we did the linebackers. The week before it was the secondary. This week we're finishing up on the defensive side of the football with the D-line. 20 sacks, guys. That's it. 2-0. This team had 20 sacks. 10 of those sacks came from Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins this year. I think there were 2 or 3 players in the NFL this year who alone single-handedly had more sacks than the Bengals had as a team. We mentioned earlier in the year, I wanted to say Geno Sacks. That is his Twitter handle. Geno Atkins coming off a pretty significant leg injury. Let's give him some credit there. But there were at times where he was getting pushed around a lot, and not the same Geno Atkins we remembered. Dunlap, he did have the 7 sacks, but again, there were days looking at this game where his pass rush was ineffective. They couldn't get to the quarterback at all. And I'm pinpointing these 2 guys, which is unfair because everybody on the defensive line struggled this year in 2014. So give me your overview, Anthony, of the defensive line this year. We'll do grades a little bit later.
There's so many issues, Nick. I mean, it's, if you look at it as it is, I was thinking about this a little bit before the show. I almost think that Geno Atkins maybe didn't get a fair shake of things. And what I mean by that is the team, I don't know if they necessarily pressured him into coming back as early as possible, week 1, be there as the starter, but they were banking on that. And maybe they pushed him into action a little earlier than they should have. And they did that because they weren't active in free agency. They didn't have a contingency plan behind Geno Atkins to come in and at least fill in for the first few weeks, let him rest a little more, get his legs under him, and then bring him back. I mean, he just wasn't the same guy, and he flashed it sometimes. I hope it comes back for him next year, but I just kind of wonder about that a little bit. I think Michael Johnson's departure, that's a 3-down guy that you can move around on the line a little bit. And though he's not a sack machine, he does a lot of good things, and he went elsewhere, and that affected the line greatly. The team lost faith in Margus Hunt. You saw that late in the year. He barely played any snaps, and he only had a sack on the year. Robert Gathers had a sack on the year, and these are guys that you're planning on getting to the quarterback either as a starting or a rotational type of defensive end player. So very disappointing. This unit needs a lot of different upgrades. It needs to get healthier. And I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're going to do this year. I don't know if they're going to get more of a speed guy, if they're going to add more size, but it's going to be addressed, I would assume, early and often, free agency and draft.
Last week, AC, you quizzed me on the past tendencies of the Bengals defensive line, and that was, rotation. They did not have that this year. And you talk about a guy, Geno Atkins, he needs to be fresh. And, when you have guys like Devin Still who did make the team and then they brought him back for a couple games, and, we know he wasn't there mentally, which we totally understand and we get. But again, Brandon Thompson missed some significant time this year with an injury. When you got Margus Hunt, who's a big-time project, and even he missed some time with injuries. So when your 2 bookend ends are Robert Gathers, who I believe is 32 going on 33, might even be older, and Carlos Dunlap, and nobody else behind him, Scott. I mean, the rotation was what made this defensive line great. And, again, we just didn't see it this year.
Yeah, and there was a couple levels, as far as what made the defensive line struggle so much. I know some of it had to do with the Michael Johnson departure, although I don't think as much had to do with that as a lot of people do. I think when you look at Atkins, he was an average to above average player this year, but for the way this line is built and for Atkins and the Bengals, unfortunately that's not enough. They need him to be that dominant player. What's overlooked with Atkins is, when he's healthy and on top of his game, he garners 2 blockers, sometimes even 3. And when that happens, that allows other guys one-on-one situations and allows other guys to get in the backfield, and it makes those around him better. Atkins was not good enough this year where teams had to do that. There was a number of times where you could see teams were matching offensive linemen up on him one-on-one, and therefore the other players weren't getting the favorable situations that they have in the past. So, hopefully Atkins is back to being 100% this year. Normally with an ACL, you take a look at the second year being when they kind of round back into form. So I'm hoping that's the case with him. And also missing Vontaze Burfict, at the linebacker position is, I know he's not a guy that gets a bunch of sacks, but he causes a lot of havoc along the line. And he's a guy that the offense has to account for. And when they're trying to account for him, again, mistakes are made. It allows other guys to get free. With Burfict not being on the field this year, that's one other layer of this defense that the offense didn't have to worry about. So, I think Burfict's absence played a big role in the slide of the defensive line as well.
Another guy that gets a lot of flack, and his play dropped off pretty significantly here in 2014 AC is Domata Peko. And there's been a lot of talk, and not just him, but Gathers as well, a lot of talk amongst Bengals fans here in our chat room and throughout the season that those two guys are probably on their last straw here in Cincinnati if they don't make the roster this year, or they feel like maybe they shouldn't. Your thoughts on those two guys in particular?
It's really tough for me. I don't know if you guys know, but I used to coach baseball at a really pretty high level, and as a coach, I had teams that were filled with talented players that had poor attitudes, and I had a team that maybe was a little lesser talented, but it was filled with hard workers and all of that. And actually, we had more success in the season with the hard workers, lesser talented guys than those guys that are highly talented and poor attitudes. So for me personally, it's tough for me to sit here and say get rid of them. But you look at the product on the field, and it's so subpar. I think because it's a valued position, and he makes a few more plays that I've noticed than Gathers does, I think I'd keep Pico around over Gathers, simply for the fact that he is a team leader. He's very active in the community, and he doesn't. I wouldn't use him as a starter at all. Maybe a rotational guy. I don't know if he would accept that or not, but. But those are spots. You're right, Nick. Those are spots that have to be looked at. They're eating up salary that could go to younger and more athletic players. And if they want to boost the pass rush and even the inconsistency in the run defense this year, those are two positions you have to look at. And I like Robert Gathers, and for a long time, the team said, oh, we keep him around. Not only is he a great guy, great locker room guy, but he's really good against the run. Well, that's great. But a lot of times you don't pay defensive ends to be great against the run. You pay defensive ends to get after the quarterback, and Robert Gathers just does not do that. He had 1 year where he had a pretty outstanding sack total and had nothing since. I think that was back in like 2006 or something. So it's been a while since he's been a productive football player, and I think it's time to cut ties. It's very difficult for me to say that because I know what those guys mean to this team. But, at some point, if this window's closing, you got to get younger, faster, more athletic.
Didn't they pick Gathers over Justin Smith to give long-term money to?
Yeah, he was obviously cheaper, I think. But, yeah, I think that it played out something like that.
I just think that backfired on them as well. Justin Smith went on to do some pretty good things there in San Francisco. But, yeah, I think that those two guys – the drop-off performance was pretty significant here in 2014. And, Marvin's always talking about competition and making your football team better and taking the best 53 guys. And we'll see what happens in the offseason as far as free agency goes. We keep hearing that they may be active. It's a wait-and-see kind of approach there from us here on the show because we've heard it before. But we know that they've done some solid things in the draft as well. We'll get to our grades in a bit. If you want to get in touch and give us your thoughts on the defensive line, get in touch, 404-946-3397. Let's go to the Skype line. the Jungle Line, I should say. And let's welcome in an old friend of the program. We haven't heard from him in a couple weeks. Fatal Content. Fatal, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, man? I finally know how to call in the show. I forgot how this went.
How's it going, man? Did you enjoy the Super Bowl?
Enjoy, man. I was just about to bring that up. I'm glad it's like you read my mind, man. When did the Bengals steal the Seahawks players and jump in their uniforms and do what they did at the end of the game? I mean, that was a Bengals way of losing the game, man. I don't mean to pile up on our guys, but man, when I saw that, that's the first thing I thought. That's something that, we'd call in that situation and just lose in that way. I'm glad we're not the only ones to do that.
Yeah, Michael Bennett jumping off sides reminded me of, I think it was Pat Sims against Drew Brees a couple years ago. Oh man.
Man, that was horrible. What a terrible moment for the Seahawks. I'm glad the Bengals aren't the only ones that mess up in that fashion.
But they were on the doorstep, which we can't even say.
Exactly. I just want to say a few things, man. It's been a few weeks. It's finally good speaking to you guys, but I just wanted to say that I know a lot of Bengals fans get on the Bengals for not making big moves, and I wanted to know if you guys think if you guys think that's backfired on us, or do you think that the Bengals are taking the right approach? Because we kind of have gotten to the playoffs the last 4 years. I just kind of think that I'm in agreement where our window is kind of closing. I'd hate to say that, but you can't expect to have this talent for this long and think that it's going to continue to go. Eventually, guys are going to want to get paid. They're going to want to leave, or whatever the case may be. And maybe it's just not working. So I was thinking maybe for once, do you guys think they should maybe go after Revis, or what are you guys' thoughts on free agency this year?
Well, that would be nice if they could get Revis. The question is, does Revis want to come here? I look, and the way I look at this team, the approach that they've taken over the last 5 or 6 years, is that they do it all through the draft, and they don't spend the money in free agency. Now, I don't know if there's a guy in free agency that I can think of or that I can remember, and I'll let Anthony and Scott answer this as well. There's not a guy in free agency that is really jumping out to me that says, man, if we had him, we definitely would have gotten over that playoff hump. Because I don't know if there is that guy. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll start with you, AC. Maybe you have a thought on that.
Yeah, there are a couple. But
can you guarantee that they would have won a playoff game had they signed them?
No. But, there are a couple guys. Darren Sproles was a guy that could have been had for a couple of years, both after he left San Diego and then he was available for trade from the Saints, and he's had a big impact on pretty much every team he's been to, both as a special teams player and an offensive player. So, that's one guy that kind of comes to mind. I guess I'll kind of stick with the Eagles theme, and D'Amico Ryans is another guy who's been a solid player. He's been injured a little bit, but he's had a good career, and he was a free agent guy. There are others that Mike Mitchell last year, the safety that went to Pittsburgh, he kind of had his ups and downs. That's kind of what you get from some of these guys, but to me, a lot of people don't like free agency. They don't like to spend the money, but it's kind of a necessary evil. Now, you don't need to be, we're getting this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. You got to kind of plug holes where you can in free agency, and then you got to utilize the draft. And like you said, Nick, the Bengals have solely relied on the draft, hope they strike gold with a lot of these guys, and as they develop, then they say, hey, all right, you're getting close to the end of your rookie contract. You're a quality player. We'll extend you. But they have had some misses lately, and in that respect, I think some of those warts showed last year. So I'm a bigger free agent proponent than most, but I'm still not the guy that says, I get every big name guy at every spot, like Madden football or something like that.
Yeah, and I know Anthony and I differ a little bit in our theory on free agency. I think the Bengals take the right approach, building through the draft. I take a look at teams that are active in free agency, and rarely do you see those teams succeed. The teams that quote unquote win the offseason battle in free agency are often the teams that are the biggest disappointments. I think back to the Buccaneers last year. I think it was the 2010 or maybe it was 2012 Eagles when Vince Young declared them I don't know what he called them, but they sucked. We'll go with that. So, I think back to Albert Haynesworth and the Redskins. In the Dolphins a couple years ago, usually the teams that spend big and get the big names don't do well. And the reason for that is no sport, more so than football, is geared on fits. A scheme fit, a personality fit, and these guys in free agency are being let go for a reason oftentimes. And, a lot of times they don't fit in the new team's scheme. And we've seen that before. If you look around the league, the teams that are most successful are not the teams active in free agency. You look at the Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Packers. There's not a lot of big free agent pickups on those teams, and the big free agent pickups aren't huge impact guys that are making a big difference. So I think the Bengals have the right approach. I will say I think they need to be a little more active than they are, though. I think when there is a difference maker out there, they need to go out there and get them. Maybe overpay to get a particular guy if it is going to make them better, but not just spend for the sake of spending.
Yeah, I guess for the sake of comparison, though, to be fair, I think a lot of the times what we're looking at is we need to compare apples to apples, because I think what we're looking at is a really sorry team that added a bunch of pieces, and they were bad as it was, and they just were desperate and added a bunch of pieces that didn't work. Where I think we need to compare is the Baltimore Ravens when they won the Super Bowl. One of their biggest additions was the receiver, what's his name, from FSU, Bolden. Another addition was the Patriots this year with Revis. The other year was when they added Randy Moss, and they went 18-0. So I think the Bengals are on that spectrum where they're a great team that maybe one big addition or one key addition would make a world of a difference. We're not in the Cleveland Browns realm where it's like, hey, I had a bunch of people, we suck, and expected to work. I think where I do agree is a middle ground is where AC is at. Is we're kind of on the cusp, and we do need to add that one guy, and I think that's where I say we need to compare it.
Well, we'll see what happens in the offseason. We keep hearing these rumors and rumblings that they might be active in free agency, but that remains to be seen. We'll find out here in a couple weeks. Hey, Fatal, appreciate the call, man. Don't be a stranger, buddy. All right?
No, I won't, man. I'll definitely call. I've been a little busy, but I won't neglect this time, man. And I'll just add one more thing, man. The only thing I'm sad about is that we could have had Teddy Bridgewater in a Bengals uniform. Now when we watch him develop, I'm going to get even sadder.
We don't got time for a quarterback.
We don't, man. Hey, shout out to you guys, man. Keep doing great work. I've still been listening to the shows, and I'll call for the after party if I can.
All right. Appreciate the call. Who day, man?
Who day?
Let's go to area code 703. Hi, who's this?
Hi, this is Richard Rolson.
Hey, Richard. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I've was really liking the conversation, so I thought I'd jump in. I hadn't been able to the last couple weeks.
What's on your mind?
Well, I was interested in the discussion about free agency, and I have a slightly different take than Scott and Anthony, in that I think that, and the Patriots to me are the best team example of this, is that you need to be active in free agency, but you have to have a really strong plan going in. I think the mistakes, the teams that, like Scott was discussing, Washington Redskins, the Tampa Bay, is that they go for like big names. People wanted to make huge splashes in free agency, whereas the Patriots over the years, they've done a lot of collecting guys, and they did this right from the beginning. When Belichick came in, they collected guys that were maybe sitting behind someone that was really strong, and they kind of brought in like Wes Welker and that. People really didn't know who he was, but could see like flashes, and they addressed specific needs on their team. And then when they do make a splash, like Revis or Moss a few years ago, it was because there was like that one weakness that they had that could take them to the next level. And so I would like to see the Bengals do that this year, is that we know that they need a pass rusher, and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing into the draft. So, make your push. Don't just go get free agents, but make a real push at getting someone who can get to the quarterback, or tight end. We definitely had a weakness at tight end. Someone like Virgil Green or Clay down in Miami, guys that are good but maybe could be better on a different team. Grab that. But have it very targeted. Don't just go to get free agents, but have very targeted positions that you're wanting to get.
I like that. I like that approach, Richard. I agree with you. I think that there are guys out there that could make this team a lot better, but I'm glad, too, that they're not in a position like the Redskins who consistently won the offseason. Teams like, again, Tampa Bay a year ago, I think they're having buyer's remorse a year later after spending all the money that they did, and then to go out and see the fact that they had nothing on the field. It also doesn't help that they have issues at quarterback. And, that's something that the Bengals don't have. I think I agree with you on that front. Appreciate the call, man.
Well, and one other thing, though,
okay.
With that, though, if I could say, I think the Bengals also have to take another page from the Patriots, is that a couple guys, I really like them, Pecco, Gathers, they've done a lot, but the Patriots, they get rid of guys, they let guys go before their expiration date, and I think the Bengals have to do that. If we're going to get over, we can't just be holding on to guys because we have sentimental feelings. So, anyway, it's a great show. Love listening to you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for the call, Richard. Who day, man?
Who day?
Look, the Patriots, and they're a model franchise when it comes to free agency in the sense that they don't overpay their own guys. They have their budget. They have their idea of what their value is, and yet that they bring in guys that will make an impact. Junior Seau was another one of those guys they brought in who was a big impact at linebacker. Getting Darrelle Revis in free agency this year, I think they've traded a 4th-round pick to get Randy Moss from the Raiders. So, yeah, there's no question they are a model franchise when it comes to the offseason and dealing with the salary cap. And, let's hope that the Bengals eventually get on that level. Appreciate the calls, everybody. Let's do some letter grades. So if you had to give a grade for the defensive line here in 2014, Anthony, I'm guessing it's going to be a low one.
I'm going D-, not passing. A little bit above an F because I really liked Carlos Dunlap's play. I thought all around I think I touted him throughout the season on this show. I really liked what he brought. I think if you get another good pass rusher on the outside opposite of him, I think he'll really shine even more. But other than that, Geno Atkins made the Pro Bowl, wasn't deserved in my opinion. Domata Pico, I like the guy. I like what he's done in the past, but not a very good year from him. The guys behind them either hurt or ineffective. So this group has a lot of regrouping to do. And now to Scott's point, if Atkins can come back and play to old form, I think a lot of things are going to look different next year. But that is asking quite a lot. But I'll go D-.
Anthony's going D-. Kurt Campbell in the chat room, he's throwing up his D's. He's giving the defensive line a D. Scott, I imagine you're going to be along those same lines, huh?
I'm going to go with an F. I think, it may sound harsh, but you know what? When you end up dead last in any category, that's bad. So, when you end up 32nd out of 32 teams in terms of sacks, that's got to be as big of a failure as I can think of. I know they had some injuries. I know Atkins wasn't healthy, but as we talked about earlier in the show, there were some guys on the line that just simply didn't contribute. Will Clark, Marcus Hunt was really a disappointment this year. Robert Gathers was essentially missing and stealing another paycheck from the Brown family. Gilberry went from 7.5 sacks to 1.5 or 1. Pecco was essentially an orange cone out there, and Devin Still wasn't much better. So there was too many guys on the line that were liabilities when they were in the game, and so I'd have to go as low as you can go, an F.
I agree with you, Scott. I'm going F as well, and not just for the play this year, I'm also going to give the Bengals an F when it comes to the draft and picking these guys. Too many projects, and they're not panning out. Marcus Hunt was a third-round pick, a lot of upside. The guy played like 14 downs in the NFL or in college football, so they didn't know what they had in the guy. The other guy, Will Clark, somebody they drafted, again, to be fair, it's his first year, so we still don't know what we have in the guy, but we didn't even see him play until later on in the year. I'm trying to think, outside of Dunlap in the Marvin Lewis era, I can't think of a good defensive end that they've drafted that has really panned out from the defensive end spot. We know they've hit with Thompson. We know they hit with Atkins. But Devin Still, I believe, was a second-round pick. Was a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Has done nothing in the NFL. Look, I got to go F. And it's not just, I guess I got to go back and, I'm reminded, too, that Michael Johnson was a guy they drafted. And, again, Michael Johnson, great against the run, good at deflecting balls at the line of scrimmage, but from a sack standpoint, I'm still waiting for these guys to really make a significant impact. There are players in the NFL, again, who had more sacks individually than this team had at all. That, to me, is ridiculous. I would love to see the Bengals have that cornerstone defensive end that is going to get you 15 to 20 sacks a year, and that would be amazing. But, again, we can all wish. So I'm going F as well. Love to get your thoughts, so Bengals fans. Inside the Jungle at spnt.tv is the email address. Email me and let me know who you think or what the letter grade you would give to the defensive line here in 2014. As we get out of here, let's do some shout-outs.
Shout-outs!
Start us off, Anthony.
I don't think any of us shouted him out last week, but he had an excellent question on the show last week. I think his name is Andy Rickenbach. Is that correct, Nick?
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah. He was a first-time caller, long-time listener, and I tried to real quickly listen for his name again, but I'm almost positive it's Andy Rickenbach. He's also a contributor to the Patreon group, I believe. So great guy, great question. And, one guy I want to shout out, I don't believe I ever have, and he used to call in all the time, but we haven't heard from him for a while, is Greg from Cincinnati. So, Greg, if you are listening, call back in, buddy. We miss you.
Good shout out. Solid. Yeah, we haven't heard from Greg in a while. Hopefully all is good in his world. Good shout out, AC. How about you, Scott?
Gonna give a shout out to a guy named The Wanderer, at The Wanderer 2020. We was tweeting back and forth with him this week. I got into a little bit of a Twitter spat with the writer from the Denver Post after a inflammatory article he wrote about Mike Brown and the whole Vance Joseph situation. I'll have an article coming out on Since the Jungle later this week about that. But, the Wanderer jumped in and brought up some very valid points, things that were conveniently left out of the story about Vance Joseph. And so a shout out to him. He brought some good points.
Good job. Good shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to a guy this week. For those of you who may know, over the month of January, we had a survey out there about the show and just asking for feedback about the podcast, what you like, what you dislike, that sort of thing. And the prize for a lucky random listener who filled out the survey was an Inside the Jungle t-shirt. So I'm going to give a shout out this week to Ty Barnhart. He was the winner of the shirt contest. Thank you for filling out the survey, Ty, and thank you to everybody who helped out and gave us some feedback about the program as well. Really do appreciate it. As far as the shirts go, I do have an announcement about the shirts. I was actually packaging them up this weekend with my wife, the orange shirts, and we dug deeper into the box, and the shirts were all crap. Just bad print quality. So I had to take them and send them back. And so I apologize. I haven't been able to get those delivered out. I do apologize. Can't send them out in the way that they looked. They were pretty bad. So working with the vendor to get those back in stock. So I apologize. As soon as I do get those back, though, for everybody who listens and is a Patreon and on that shirt level, and for those who have purchased an orange shirt, I apologize, and I'll get those out as soon as I possibly can. Thank you for your patience. It's tough running a business, if you know what I mean, gents. Again, thank you for everybody tuned in live. Final thoughts as we wrap up episode 183, Anthony Cosenza.
You know, I'm at a little bit of a loss, Nick. Usually I ramble on in these final thoughts, but I'm a little bit at a loss. I guess I'll just say, I am looking forward to free agency. I do think the Bengals will be more active this year. I don't think they'll be big spenders. I just hope, I guess, that they bring in guys with attitude and guys that have swagger that can really be leaders on this team, even if they aren't the absolute upper echelon elite players in free agency. If they can add players like that, I think that I'd be pretty happy.
Somebody like Bruce Irvin, who likes to fight Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you. Good take there, AC. You don't ramble. I love hearing your thoughts on the Bengals. Appreciate you joining us this week. Scott Bantel, final thoughts.
Nick, I was just thinking of this today. I know we all want a playoff win, but the days of being a Bengals fan right now are pretty good. I'm taking a look at ESPN.com right now, and I see on headlines, Browns face tax sanctions, Packers DT arrested for gun, pot, $190,000 in cash, Cowboys running back Randall arrested again, Colts Jackson arrested again. How nice is it that of recent, these types of stories haven't been associated with the Bengals. So it would be nice to get some playoff wins to go along with that. So let's hope for that. But for right now, the Bengals are out of the public for a good reason.
I want everybody to do me a favor right now. Pause the podcast, go find some wood and knock on it, because Scott may have just jinxed us. Just saying. No, appreciate the. I agree, though. I agree with you 100%. Glad to see that the Bengals aren't in the headlines for the wrong reason, and they haven't been of late. That's good. I agree. Thank you as well, Scott, for joining us this Wednesday night. Appreciate all you do for the podcast. We missed you this week, Mickey Mentzer. Hopefully we'll have him back next week to get his take on the offense. We need to decide. We'll make it a surprise next week as far as which group we'll cover next week on the podcast. You don't want to miss it. Again, just a reminder, too, we record Inside the Jungle in the Wednesday Night Roundtable every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern right here at CincyJungle.com. But you know what? If you can't make the live show, you can always download the podcast audio format. We're on iTunes, Stitcher Smart Radio, TuneIn, anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find Inside the Jungle. That way you don't miss a single episode of this podcast. And we talk Bengals each and every Wednesday. I know it's the off season, and I know the NFL is over with, but the off season is here. The combine is 13 days away, and there's going to be a lot to discuss this off season, so you won't want to miss it. Subscribe. You don't miss a single episode of Inside the Jungle. That's going to do it. Episode 183 is in the can. My thanks to my associate producers, Andy Lanham, Larry Rolston, and Mike Vardy. Inside the Jungle is an SPNT production. For more information about our other podcasts, log on to spnt.tv. And as always, check out our great Bengals content over at CincyJungle.com. For Mickey, Anthony, and Scott, I'm Tubes. We'll see you next Wednesday night. Good day, everybody.
Good day. Nick, I was just thinking.
What was that noise?
That was me dropping my phone.
Dropping the mic.
Yeah, that's right. I'm walking off after that show. If you want to up the sales, T-shirt sales aren't going good. I think a shirtless calendar of Nick Suberling. Maybe in firefighter gear, no shirt. I think it would sell. I think.
I don't know about that.
I mean, who needs Bengal cheerleader calendars when they could get Subs on their desk?
You're crazy.
So are you not sending out black ones? You're only sending out orange shirts?
I've got 2 orders for the black one. One of them was my mom.
Okay.
So I do need to send out. I have a package. I got to get to the post office, and with the snow, it hasn't been easy.
Okay. Let me know if you want help with hats again, dude. I don't know if you want to do that again or not, but
Yeah, I gotta figure. Yeah, I'm just so angry that the shirts turned out bad.
who'd you go through?
It's a company called Custom Ink.
Yeah, I know them. You ever done stuff through Cafe Press?
Yeah, I might explore that in the future because that way I don't have to manage the inventory. 'Cause they
Yeah,
let you buy one off.
yeah, my wife does some stuff through that. Has done stuff through them, and she likes their stuff. So, but I the ones before that I did with the hats, I went to just the local T-shirt place where you can kind of customize stuff. So I can get that done again if you want.
Yeah, we'll have to explore that. The shirt sales have been what's the word? Slow.
Okay.
That's all right. Fado, how you been, man?
Oh, been good, man. Long time no hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Few minutes.
And of course, I got to go to work. Fun.
I thought you said you had it off.
No, Sunday night.
Oh.
Super Bowl I had off.
I gotta work too, man. 1 a.m., man.
Yeah.
1 a.m. Ouch. Vito, where do you work at?
I work in the data center, man. In downtown Miami, right by the Heat Arena. Right by the Miami Heat Arena. It's basically just IT crap, boring stuff.
Third shift.
So I work from 1 to 9 to cover the first shift.
Ouch.
You do 5 days a week, Fatal?
Yep. I believe it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what's the sleeping habits like? So you probably get home at 9 a.m., right?
They're terrible, man. They differ from day to day. It depends on what I have to do. If I'm off the following night, I usually stay up throughout. I'll probably take an hour nap if I was exhausted, and I'll just stay up and do something with my day so I don't waste it. And then since I don't work that night, I fall asleep relatively early. Because if I go to sleep and I wake up around 6 or 5, I can't sleep that night. I'm up to 6, 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's brutal. And then if I have to work the following night, I'll sleep till about 5, 6. Today I woke up around 7 p.m. So it's brutal, man.
Yeah. I try to go to sleep as soon as I get home. But today the kids had a 2-hour delay, so I got to be awake till at least 10:30. And then I got to be awake when they get off the bus. So it's I got maybe 4 hours of sleep today.
Right.
I'm pretty tired.
And I don't know if you can attest to this, but it's freaking hard to fall asleep with the sun out, man. People, that thing is no matter how tired you are, I can't fall asleep easily.
Well, I'll give you a little secret, Fatal. Here in Ohio, we don't see the sun. It's gray. It's gray. It's gray from It's from October to March. It's gray, man. But I will say this: when you have snow on the ground, all that white reflects and it's bright. So I feel you. I've got a dark sheet over my shades, and even that it doesn't really help. But you're right. It's pretty rough.
You got to get some of those blackout shades. They're not bad.
Should do that. How you doing, Kurt?
All right. How are you guys?
How are things at the airport?
They're fantastic.
We don't want any Taiwan Airlines incidents tonight, all right?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Keep them on the runway, buddy.
Get it, man.
No, I got a couple minutes until I got on the flight come in. I guess I'll just pick your brain about it, but I can always call in next week about it.
Do both.
They've always got a project, Marcus Hunt is a project. Will Clark is a project.
Muhammad
Sanu
is a
project.
And they always suck.
They pick all these guys in like the first or second round, and then like they don't see field time for years. And it's just like I'm getting impatient. Like, why are we spending first round, second round picks to these guys if they're not going to contribute at least right away? And I
name a project that's worked. I mean, there's an all project team.
Cody brought up a great one in the chat room, and that's Michael Johnson.
Yeah,
They drafted him as defensive end. It didn't work. And then they tried him at linebacker, and it didn't work. And then finally, his third year, they put him back on defensive end, and he starting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah.
That's a stretch for a project.
I mean, I'm talking like the Stacey Andrews. I'm talking Jason Shirley. I'm talking Margus Hunt.
Jason Shirley.
I'm talking. Remember Chris Harrington? Remember the first go round on Hard Knocks? Mike Brown wanted to move the defensive end to tight end. Remember that one?
Yeah, it's like Orson Charles, you know, from tight end to running back, and now Ryan Hewitt. But I'm talking like Dre Kirkpatrick. It was finally his third year, and he's finally seeing the field. Darqueze Dennard, you know, he comes out in a training camp, and Marvin Lewis is like, oh, this is the best, you know, rookie cornerback in the draft. And he didn't play like 7 snaps of cornerback the whole year? And it's just like, if we're going to be spending these first-round picks, I mean, I know that, you know, the way Marvin Lewis works is he's sometimes slow. It's like give guys time to produce so that when they do start, they're like ready for it and they're really, really effective. But I think a lot of fans are starting to get impatient. Like, why are we spending all these top round picks on these guys that they're not going to see the field for the first 2 or 3 years of their career? It's just frustrating.
I put up a post today, Kurt. I don't know if you saw it, but I'll let you know a little secret. A lot of people hate on Dre Kirkpatrick, right? And, you know, there's a lot
or John from Kentucky. One person.
Wow, whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of people that hate on Dre Kirkpatrick. Well, I think we all know how limited of snaps he's had on defense over the past couple of years. First, his rookie year was kind of a wash. He was injured. He's had a lot of limited snaps in 13 and 14. He has 6 interceptions and 2 touchdowns in those limited snaps. Terrence Newman
not playing more.
Terrence Newman, the starter, has 5 interceptions in the last 2 years with far more snaps. And then you look at the drop-off between – they had six returns for touchdowns on defense in 2013 and 1 in 2014. That was kind of the point of my post is get more athletic. Get guys out there who are big play guys that can turn the tide of a game. Even if they gamble a little bit and they do get burned here and there, I don't know. I think you're a little better for it. And I think that's kind of what Marvin's conservative nature is. It's like, hey, you know, I don't trust these younger, maybe possibly immature guys. You saw with Jeremy Hill this year. He didn't want to play Jeremy Hill early because he was like, well, you know, we like Gio a lot, and, you know, there's things I don't like about Jeremy Hill. All of a sudden he comes in, he's one of the best players in the league. It's unbelievable. And he did it with Dunlap. He did it with Atkins. There's a track record there that's a mile long with young players, and I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, he's loyal to his vets to a fault. You know, I look at Domata Pecco's another one. Robert Gathers another. Yep. You know, Dante Moak should have been on this team rather than Robert Gathers. I don't know if he would have contributed a ton, but he at least would have presented a better threat to get to the quarterback than Robert Gathers did. You know, I look back at a couple years ago at the center position. Who was it? Trevor Robinson played well when he was in there for whoever was injured at the time.
Cook.
And as soon as the guy came back, Cook. And as soon as Cook came back, they put him in there, and Cook sucked. And you know, he's always been. It's so frustrating. He's been so loyal to the vet. You know, even when they have a better player behind him.
But then there's like rookies that he's like Leon Hall. You're starting 16 games as a rookie. Gio Bernard, we're giving you a huge role as a rookie. There's like these weird
Gresham
ones.
Same way.
Yeah, there's like these weird anomalies that he's like, yes, no, not you, yes. It's really weird. I don't know if there's some perceptions that's seen in practice. I put this in the article too. I don't know if they see stuff like this guy's not trying hard, his attitude's kind of crappy, or whatever they think they see. But there's a couple of guys they rely on as rookies, yes, early on, and like a lot of others that they say no way. Remember Dunlap? Dunlap didn't play till like week 8.
Yeah.
His rookie year. And then all of a sudden he got like 9 sacks as a rookie or something.
Yeah. And then you look at like Margus Hunt. Like he's supposed to be this physical freak, who like has played like very minimal football, but he has got like the talent for playing this game. Well, the only way he's going to get better and they're going to like turn this project to a starter is by giving him snaps, because he's had limited snaps already. Like what, he played like 2 years in college, and now he's had 2 years in the NFL, but his 2 years in the NFL, he like hasn't played anything. So if you want this project to actually turn into a starter, then you got to play him. And you got to get rid of guys like Petco, and you got to get rid of guys like Adders. Or if you're not going to get rid of them, make them the backup. Make them the rotational guys. Yep. You know, give Hunt the start, or give another nose tackle to start. Will Clark is another defensive end. We picked him up in like the 5th round last year, and he had like 3 snaps this year. I know he's a 5th rounder, but I mean, if he's going to be the guy that takes over for, whoever, Gilberry or whatever someday, like, you got to get him on the field. You got to get him snaps. And I'm just tired of this, like, oh, we're going to like slowly work him into the system over the next 2 or 3 years, and by then, like, I don't know, they're going to be like, well, I'm going to go somewhere else because I can get a starting job somewhere else if you're going to play this 35-year-old guy in front of me.
A good buddy of mine, he nails this on the head all the time with Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis loves what he refers to as the pros pro. And, when he has a veteran that's a pros pro, it's going to be nearly impossible for a younger guy to get above him to play. And Anthony, like you were talking about with Leon Hall starting right away, but Leon Hall is that, prototypical pros pro. He came into the league. He was kind of mature for his age, kind of like Denard, which Denard doesn't really fit into getting the playing time, but, he was that pros pro that Marvin loves.
Bodie must be a pros pro, because Brett in the chat made a good point about Bodie, and he slotted right in as a starter at center.
I don't get it. Hey, I got limited time and other stuff. I just wanted to get in. That was just bugging me all night. We started talking about it, so who knows? Maybe we'll bring it up another time. Thanks for
read my post, Kurt, if you get a chance. I talk about a lot of it. I put it up this afternoon.
I will. I'll go read it right now.
I talk about a lot of that stuff in it.
All right, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah,
all right, see you, buddy.
See you, man. Nick, I don't know if you noticed, but without Mickey here, I decided to bring my Mickey's beard startup kit to the show today. So
thank you.
Scott's beard game is strong.
I know it's not as sweet and as impressive as Mickey's, but one day, my friend, it'll get there.
Are you growing your beard?
For like a week or so.
Oh, okay. Somebody tweeted me, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody tweeted me that they're not shaving until the Bengals win a playoff game.
Is it that guy that's always at Bengals training camp? And
no, it's not that guy. It's not that guy.
Yeah, not that guy, hopefully.
No, I can't remember who it was.
That guy hasn't shaved since the Bengals won a playoff game.
That guy's beard is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's one word for it.
Yeah.
So which group should we do next week?
Kickers. We did
kickers.
Linebackers.
I would love to do kickers. We save the kickers for last. The best for last. Fatal. Come on now.
Are we doing special teams?
Oh yeah, we'll do it. Oh yeah.
Okay, but you want to go offense?
Yeah, let's do offense first.
Tight end.
Okay.
That works. That works.
That was well received. Good Lord.
I'm on board. It's fine with me. I wanted to get started too.
I heard crickets. Is this thing on? Hello? I heard crickets on that.
That's perfect with me because I'm going to be putting up a article on the tight ends this week, so that's fine by me.
All right, cool. Tight ends it is.
Nick, sorry that I missed your question earlier today.
Say what, Fatal?
Oh, sorry, man. I don't know if Mustache was talking. I couldn't hear him, but I was asking if the schedule, if our opponents was out already. I haven't even gotten a chance to see it.
We have the opponents. We just don't know what dates.
Yeah, we know who and where, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just not when.
See us making the playoffs this year again?
I don't see why not.
No.
No?
No.
I say yeah.
Unless they really improve themselves this offseason. And the guys that didn't play well last year who were still rehabbing. I mean, like if Burfict comes back and he's still a great player, and Atkins returns close to form, and then they add some guys, then yes. If they don't really do much and those guys don't come back the same way, then no.
And if you guys want to entertain yourself, Bengals.com right now has some high school pictures up of the players. They got one there of Dalton with some sweet, long, shaggy orange hair.
What?
CJ has it too.
Yeah, oh, dude. Guess I should promote that one then.
I actually think the link leads to. I think it leads to the Bengals.com one. Yeah, okay. It does. Yeah, it does.
All right, gents, I got to go to work.
All right, buddy.
We'll see y'all next Wednesday.
All right.
All right, Nick.
I'll leave this up. You guys can chat away.
All right, Nick. Yeah, guys.
So the Bengals
I think as long as we get our offense back healthy, I think we should be dangerous. That's a big if. Maybe we need to add my guy Philip Dorsett from Miami, man. I'll say it here now, man. I'm going to scream it, and when the draft comes, I'm going to scream it into the sky, maybe speak it into existence.
I think
I like him, Fatal.
So do I.
Maybe third round.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's approximately where he goes.
I think you look at a guy like that, you look at the Lockett kid, or you look at Nelson Aguilar from USC. I think you look at those three guys. They need another receiving weapon, even though they think, a lot of people are like, oh, Sanu, Marvin Jones is coming back, and AJ. I mean, you got to have someone that's a deep threat. And Jones is kind of that, but he's not. I don't know if I really see him as the 4-3 just run by everyone guy. You know what I mean? And I like Marvin. I like Marvin Jones a lot, but I don't know. I do not mind at all if they. I would not mind at all if they added a wide receiver somewhat early in the draft. A quick guy.
I mean, Jones is a savage, man. I think he's a really good player. He just plays a little reckless. I think that's part of what they were talking about on Hard Knocks. He was a little reckless with the football. They kind of wish he didn't, die for the football on every instance. But I think the last time we saw him on the field was when we played the Chargers. Everybody disappeared, but he was a stud. I believe
he was awesome.
13 catches and 100-something yards. He went off. I mean, he went nuts. But I'm a proponent of adding maybe, I don't know why, but I want to add Jeremy Maclin to somebody like that.
I wouldn't mind it. Yeah, the thing I wrote early too is, it's great. It's great that you want to have faith in a lot of good players that you already have here, like Marvin Jones, Tyler Eifert, or whatever. But if you're going to sit around and wait for these guys to come around on major, that's what they did this year. They didn't do anything in free agency. They kind of addressed other areas in the draft, and they relied on Geno Atkins, Leon Hall, and other guys to come back from injury and come back to be the same exact guys week one, and they weren't. And they weren't the entire year. And you have to look at Vontaze Burfict, Tyler Eifert, Marvin Jones, and you have to look at those spots and say, you know what, yeah, we've got good players there, but I don't know if they're going to be the same guys week 1, 2015. You don't know. So you can't as a team hang your hat on those guys coming back and being counting on them being major contributors right away, given that they all suffered some major injuries last year.
Yeah, I think you've got to operate you almost have to operate under the assumption that Vontaze Burfict is not going to be the same player.
Right.
If he is, that's great, but the history of microfracture surgery says you're not going to get the same player.
Yeah.
So they've got to operate as if he's not going to be the same player.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. One thing I will say, though, in fairness to the Bengals, I never like to come off like the apologist, but aside from us, I think the Cardinals were the only team that was as brutally affected by injuries as we were. Come on, you can't expect, Marvin Jones, A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, even Jermaine Gresham. You can't expect Vontaze Burfict, Ray Maluga, I mean, as many guys as we lost on defense, or offense for that matter, to be lost in one season. I mean, I know injuries happen to key players at a time, but damn, that was brutal. To go into a playoff game and not have anyone available, I mean, you can't expect that either.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's why it's
brutal.
It's tough to grade that playoff loss because I mean take a look at the Bengals were basically without their top 3 receiving targets. You take away any team's top 3 receiving targets, and I don't see any teams that are going to win.
No, not to mention their best defensive player. I mean, it's one thing to have. If you have your full defense and it's a close game, okay, that's different. But we didn't even have our best player at linebacker as well.
And Maluga left halfway during the game.
Oh yeah, that too.
Part of me wants to see more, and I really like the rotation thing because it keeps guys fresh and it mixes up looks and all of that. But part of me wants the team, instead of getting these guys like, hey, you're good for 2 downs and you're good to come in on 3rd down. Why not just invest in some dominant players that can play all 3 downs? I mean, and yeah, you can mix in some other guys here and there, but I mean, if you can find 3-down players, you got to go for them. And I don't know if they really have a ton of 3-down guys. I mean, on defense, I think you probably look at Reggie Nelson, Vontaze Burfict when he's healthy, and Geno when he was healthy. And then maybe Carlos Dunlap and maybe Michael Johnson when he was here. But, I mean, even then they'd swap guys in and out of those spots too. I just would like to see them, and 3-down guys are hard to find, but if you can find some of those guys, I'd like to see them latch onto some of those.
Yeah, and the Bengals are going to be in a tough position after next year. If you take a look at this is a year they don't have a lot of expiring contracts. They can be active in free agency, but take a look at who's free agents next year. It's crazy. It's like, I think George Iloka, maybe Nelson, Green, Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Andre Smith, Andrew Whitworth. I mean, the list is just,
that's why
it's crazy.
That's why I worry about their window.
Yeah. So I said a few minutes ago, man, we can't depend on all of these guys sticking around. This is not the Steelers of old where you can bring them all back, or like these older teams. The free agency is something to deal with.
Yeah.
Man, but I can't get over what the hell the Seahawks did. I watched the game and I was mad, and I'm not a Seahawks fan. I was mad.
I agree.
And your boy Pete Carroll, man. I mean, AC, your boy Pete Carroll, just not owning it up, just saying, the stats favored it and all this crap and that crap. I mean,
yeah.
It's just terrible. The OC saying the receiver should have came to the ball. I mean, that's the worst part. That's what I'd be most mad about if I were a Seahawks fan, that these guys are defending that thing to the death.
Yeah, and I think they're doing that also. I think they probably know. I mean, I think they're doing that a little bit to, back up their team, back up their coaches, and kind of put the onus on the players. But we said this in the show. I would have liked to have seen more of a read option play. I mean, I think an up the gut deal, while effective at a lot of times with Lynch, would have been really predictable. I think if you fake that and let Russell take it outside, and then if he can't get to the end zone, then he can maybe run out of bounds and stop the clock. Then you still have your timeout. You could then maybe run it with Lynch. If he doesn't get in, you can use the timeout, and then you throw the ball on 4th down if that's what it came to. But tricky situation. There's a deal with the whole thing that's been talked about this week is detail-oriented guy in Belichick and more players coach, not so detail-oriented guy, Pete Carroll. And I think a situation like that kind of showed that. And the Seahawks burned timeouts uselessly in the second half. Their first, the 2 that they had, they burned them when they didn't even need to burn them, really. So,
I found it fitting and ironic that one of my reasons for disliking the Seahawks is just their brash cockiness. And I kind of think that play call at the end of the game was a bit of a cocky play call. So I found it somewhat ironic and funny that they lost, calling such a play. But that's just me kind of hating the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And how about the anybody who's a Patriot hater right now is probably feeling double hurt. You saw them win a title, and now you saw them make a completely retarded move in terms of not calling a timeout and then getting bailed out and being called geniuses. If you hate the Patriots, you're not happy right now.
Right.
Yeah, I dislike both those teams. I really did not want to see that matchup as the Super Bowl.
I like the Seahawks. I like what they stand for. Even though I don't like what Lynch does, but the trash talking to me is, it shows an attitude, man, and they have an attitude, and they've backed it up the last 3-4 seasons. And you know what? I'm not a problem with it. They're not getting in trouble off the field. If you're gonna be brash, I guess it's because I'm an '80s Canes kind of guy and 2001 Canes kind of guy. They talk to you and beat up on you. And you know what? If you back it up, it's good. But hey, they have to take it. They talk trash. They lost. People don't feel bad for them.
Yeah,
I kind of like it, man. It comes with an attitude, and it comes with a physicality that they have to back up.
I love classiness when it comes from guys. I love the Barry Sanders, the LaDainian Tomlinson. Hand the ball to the ref and then celebrate with your teammates, or don't really talk. But I also, part of me, I think, especially on defense, I think that's got to be part of your DNA on defense. The more I look at that, and especially how good the Bengals have been over the past few years, not really this year, but 2011 through 2013 or so. I would love to have seen them really be the bullies and talk some noise, get in the opponent's head, and they just, either they don't have a guy on the roster that will do that, or that's totally quelled by the coach, and maybe it's both. I don't know, but if you've got the players, for me last year, if they're the number 1 defense in the AFC, number 3 overall, that's a team that could really talk some noise, and they didn't do it, but. Yeah, not that really makes you a good team, but I would like to see that. I think that breeds confidence a little bit.
And as long as you back it up, look at the Steelers back in the days. Larry Foote. What was the name of the linebacker?
Porter.
Joey Porter. What was his name?
Joey Porter.
Yeah, Joey. And you had James Harrison. They were nasty. They talked to you. They beat you up. Look at the Ravens. I know that's Scotty's favorite group, but look at Ray Lewis. Look at Ed Reed. Look at Terrell Suggs. They beat you up and they told you about it. And guess what? They backed it up, man. They whooped your butt.
Terrell Suggs beats up more than just NFL football players. Heyo. I think my joke fell flat. Sorry.
It's all right. It's good. I liked it.
I think he beats up his girlfriend a couple of times. In fact.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing, though. That's a whole other story. But yeah, they were nasty, man. They backed it up, man. And I kind of think that's the attitude the Bengals have. It's always, you see the coach on the sidelines just looks flustered and scared, and we look like the intimidated, not the intimidators. And that needs to change, man. We need to become the bullies at some point.
Yeah, but Fado, in fairness to Marvin, sometimes, trying to figure out that clock and your timeouts, that's confusing, man.
Yeah, it's hard.
He's asking his other coaches, hey, what are those 3 lights next to the game clock there?
It used to be, he used to say, what do I do with this red thing in my pocket?
Yeah. All right, boys, I got to hop off.
All right.
Been good catching up.
I'll let you go,
I'll
man.
talk to you guys
Take it easy, man.
All right. See you guys. Bye.